Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the SC Fitness Podcast. This is my Q&A episode where I'm answering questions that have come up in my online clients check-ins this week. I did upload a little episode in between the last Q&A and this one, which talks exclusively about my Thrive program, which is how I work with my clients online. Thrive is my signature online program. So pretty much all clients that come and work with me work through a variation of Thrive. It's tweaked to their individual goals and needs, and some clients upgrade to work with me on a more one-on-one basis, so the program is even more bespoke to them. But essentially, when you come and work with me, you work through the Thrive ethos and the Thrive framework, and I currently have spaces open to work with me, and I am just advertising that as much as possible to try and get the word out. So if you are interested in joining, if you're not a client listening to this, or maybe you know someone who isn't a client who would really benefit from working with me to help them make progress towards their health and fitness goals, whatever they may be, if they are interested in improving their health in a really realistic and sustainable way, that is what Thrive is about. So I would love you to point them in the direction of the podcast in general, because anyone can listen to this and benefit from the information I share on here, but also you can go and listen to that episode, which is the one before this one, which basically is me talking about everything included in Thrive when you come and work with me, what you get out of it, what services provided, what benefits you will get, what problems I will help you solve essentially. So go and have a listen to that episode if you're interested, or you know someone that is. I would love for you to pass it on, and I'm always here to chat about coaching if anyone is interested. I always leave contact details in the show notes of each episode, so you can contact me via any of those and I'll always get back to you. Right, going into this week's Q&A episode then. So I have had some great questions in the check-ins. I'm actually going to start with a question that somebody asked in our WhatsApp community last week, because I always give you the opportunity to ask questions in between check-ins, or if you forgot to ask something in your check-in, you can just pop it in the WhatsApp community. I will always answer any questions that I think you guys would be find beneficial in the podcast. And as I've said before, if there aren't many questions one week, I will pick up topics that people have been discussing or people have mentioned in their check-ins. This week, we actually have quite a few questions to work through. But if there's anything that crops up, kind of like if I then think of another topic that people have been struggling with, I'll always answer that and talk about that as well. So do feel free to ask any questions in our WhatsApp community. That's something that clients always get access to, is our WhatsApp community. So yes, we have weekly check-ins where I actively want you to fill out a form, check in with me, let me know how you're getting on, what's going well, what you're struggling with, and then I can provide really detailed and useful feedback so that you don't feel like you're struggling as much with that specific thing this week, or you maybe have a little bit more help and motivation to carry on with your goals and your progress and your targets this week going forward. So it's a really nice way for us keeping in touch weekly. But remember, when you come and work with me, we have our WhatsApp community so that you have a regular touch point with me and also the other members who are in similar shoes to you, who a lot of them have similar struggles and similar goals, and essentially can also act as your support network. So yeah, I always love questions that are asked in the WhatsApp group as well. So this person asked this question. It was last Tuesday actually, which is the day I record the podcast, but it was after I'd literally just uploaded it. So I said I would put it into this week's episode. And I did also give this person some one-on-one feedback as well, because I never want you to wait a whole week for my answer. But I thought I'll go over it now as well, because anyone else can benefit from what I said to her. So she said, one of my goals is running a faster marathon. This client is currently marathon training. She said, so one of my goals is a faster marathon time and faster running in general. And I'm just wondering if I'm not actually pushing myself to run faster because I'm doing the longer runs. How do you know when you are running at a speed that you can maintain, but it's also fast enough to push you? So I had a little chat with this client, and basically what we came to the conclusion of is that her main goal with her marathon training is to beat her previous marathon time. So I really told her to keep that in mind as her overall goal, because you will be running faster. If your goal is to get a faster time, you will be running faster than you did previously. And that is amazing progress in itself. Okay. So it's good to keep that in mind, that you will be running faster. But I also know that this client is trying to make sure she pushes herself in her runs to run at a faster pace than maybe she is used to. And what I basically wanted to make super clear is that when you're doing an endurance event like a marathon, your goal at the end of the day is to run a marathon distance, which is a bloody long way. I know that from doing one myself as well. And I've trained lots of clients actually to go through marathon and half marathon events. with their running and with their strength training, as we've kind of focused on it in a really holistic way. And basically you have to remember that you can't just and why I mentioned the strength training really is that you still need to reserve energy for your strength training. So when you are doing an endurance event, your main energy needs to go into your endurance, and then keeping strong and fit and healthy around that so that you prevent injury, and that's going to impact your running as well. Where speed comes into it is, yes, I do totally understand that you want to be pushing yourself with your speed because your ultimate goal is to have a faster marathon time. But what you need to remember when you're focusing primarily on endurance is that you can't be running the fastest you will ever be able to run when you're marathon training or when you're long distance running training. You need to sort of put it into perspective that you are going to run faster for your marathon, but you're not necessarily training for speed right now. So it's good to keep in mind essentially what your goal is. Your goal is to run a quicker marathon than you did last time. It's also to be able to have the endurance to essentially run a marathon again. It's also to be able to still prioritize your things like your strength training and your recovery around your runs. So essentially what I'm really trying to make clear to anyone that's running an endurance event or an endurance race is speed really isn't your priority. Faster than last time is going to be part of the process. And yes, you are going to have to push yourself a little bit harder than you did before in terms of improving your running pace overall. But your running pace for running a marathon is never going to be fast. For most people, it's got to be a comfortable, steady pace that you can essentially maintain for a long time, like 4 or 5 hours plus for most people running a marathon. And obviously, if we were to compare ourselves to Olympic athletes or professional athletes, professional runners, or people that have been running for a very long time and maybe it's a very big part of their life, then yes, you might look at them and think, but they're running fast. Not only are they running a long distance, but they're also running really fast. And what I'd always encourage you to do, and I've had to have this conversation with myself over the years as well, is to just not compare yourself to other people and actually just look at where you are improving. So if right now with your marathon training, and I know this person is doing this exactly this thing, I know that the pace she is aiming for in her runs is a quicker pace than when she trained for a marathon previously. And when she trained for, the paces that she is aiming for in her long runs, in her interval runs, in her shorter runs, she is pushing herself with her speed in terms of it being quicker than when she marathon trained last time. And that is amazing progress. And that is what I would say should be your priority. It shouldn't be trying to run the quickest kilometre or the quickest mile or the quickest 5K that you have ever run. You might definitely get some PBs during your training. And I know actually this person did get a 5K PB last week because she took my advice on board and she actually thought, right, I am going to try and push myself a little bit more in these sessions and up my pace. But what I want you to remember is you're not trying to go the fastest that you ever have gone before. And if after your long distance race, so in this case a marathon, you decide actually now I really do want to work on speed, that would be a really good time to think, right, I'm going to switch my plan and go for a 5K PB and actually improve on the 5K PB that you ran in your marathon training. Because at the end of the day, if you got a 5K PB as part of a marathon training program, then you could definitely do quicker in a 5K PB program, so you've got way more speed in you there. So yeah, it's just good to keep that in mind. So I hope that was helpful. I think just keep remembering what your ultimate goal is in this situation. And your ultimate goal is to do your marathon plan, to improve your endurance over time, to run a marathon. And essentially, as long as your speed is that bit quicker than your previous marathon speed, which essentially is because that is exactly what your plan is tailored to do, then you just need to stick with those paces. You need to work hard in those sessions. You've got the time that you're aiming for, and that really dictates the speed that you should be running at. So as long as you're hitting those runs, as long as you're ticking off those paces, you are right on track to get your marathon PB and run faster over time. But yeah, it's just good to remember that endurance and speed, they are different goals. And yes, you can improve your overall marathon time, but it's not necessarily going to be a speed focused program. Just keep in mind that you have to keep hitting those slightly quicker split times than maybe you did in the previous marathon plan, which I know you did a few years ago. So yeah, you've got this. You're going to absolutely smash this marathon. and just keep working hard in those runs, being super, super consistent. That's one of the most important things you can do with long distance running training is be consistent. Tick off those weekly runs. There's no room to miss a run. Maybe at the beginning of your program, if you missed one long run, it's not the end of the world. But as you go through the months, you need to be ticking off that distance because that's the only way you're going to run a marathon. And at the end of the day, you need to be ticking off the speeds that you have set, that you set yourself, that we've set you in your plan, in order to get the time that you want to get, which ultimately is going to be where your speed work comes in, because you've got to be running at a faster pace overall. So yeah, I hope that was helpful, and hopefully that is insightful to anyone else who runs long distances or maybe wants to run longer distances in future, of how it all works. Okay, next question. So this person says, I've used the make room method this week when eating out, and I have a few events over the next month where I'll definitely be using it again. I noticed on these days that I wasn't hitting my protein goal, as I usually have high protein snacks on top of protein. But on this day, I didn't snack to allow for my meal out. How can I increase protein on these days? So this is a really good question. And just to give you a summary, if you aren't aware of my make room method, maybe you're not a client of mine, maybe you've recently started working with me and you haven't got to that point yet where we've talked about meals out. I put together a method that I use and have used with clients over the years, and actually I've just named it now, the make room method, of how we approach sociable weekends, meals out, parties, when you're in, I don't even want to call it a phase really, when you are in this life of my health is really important to me, I want to make consistent good choices with my food and movement. I eat out maybe a lot, or every single weekend I'm eating out and I feel like it's throwing me off. We need a strategy essentially put in place that will help us navigate those social events. That is exactly what the make room method does, because if you know me, if you know my coaching, whether you're working with me or whether you've been following my content for a while, hopefully you will really get the message that I am very much a coach that wants you to live your life, live the life that you want to live, but still be able to achieve your health and fitness goals. Like ultimately, at the very basic level, that is exactly what I help my clients with. So eating out for me, for literally everyone I work with, is an important part of life. I don't want to ever tell my clients, no, you cannot eat out with your friends or family. No, you cannot go out on the weekend because you've got, for example, a fat loss goal or you've got a nutrition goal. I want you to be able to incorporate meals out and social events into your lifestyle in a way that still aligns with your goals overall. I know this client in particular, and I'll just reference this because it'll be relatable to lots of people, but she is focusing on fat loss right now. So using the make room method will be a really useful way of her still being boundaried with her calorie intake, which is essentially what you need to be when you're aiming for a calorie deficit overall, which is what initiates fat loss. It literally just comes down to a calorie deficit. No matter what diet you follow, no matter what approach you take, you need to be in a calorie deficit to lose fat. And if you are maybe doing that Monday to Friday, but on the weekend you're going out for a couple of meals and you're massively over consuming calories, because I'm going to be honest, it is so easy to do that on meals out through no fault of your own either. It's just restaurants want food to taste nice. It's a treat. They add lots of extra oils, butters, sauces. They don't care about calories generally, especially like just mainstream restaurants. Maybe you can go to the odd cafe where they've got sort of like quote unquote healthy calorie controlled meals, but sometimes you just want to go out and have whatever the hell you want. And actually being able to choose a meal off a menu of a mainstream restaurant where you're at with your friends and family, you don't necessarily want them to be aware that you're trying to lose weight. It's not something everyone wants to share. Maybe you just don't want to make a big deal out of it. It's really good to have strategies in place where you can think, right, I know I've got like this kind of calorie amount left for today, or actually I know that this food choice will help me stick within my calories a little bit better. Then that's going to be really, really useful. And that's essentially what the make room method does. So the fact that this person has been using it is amazing. That's definitely going to be helping your progress overall for sure. Great question about protein, because one of the things that I do say in the make room method is when you're, say, for example, eating out on Friday night, one of the easiest things you can do to essentially like save calories for the evening. And I never want you to go to a meal out starving, because at the end of the day, if you do that, you're way more likely to overeat in the evening anyway. And I don't promote that as a healthy relationship with food either. But essentially you do need to have a good amount of calories left that day so that you're basically still distributing is not really the right word. You're basically in the day as a whole, you're not massively tipping yourself over your calories. But we don't want to totally restrict all day. So one of the best tips that I give people is just don't snack on that day. Have your balanced breakfast, have your balanced lunch, fill yourself up still. But one of the things you can do to save some calories, which you could then put towards a more calorific evening meal, will be just don't snack. Like this person says, quite often she will have a snack which adds to her overall protein intake. So a super simple thing you can do is just make sure you're getting that little bit more protein in breakfast and lunch if you're eating out at dinner, for example. And it can be as simple as, for example, if you have, I quite like a high protein yogurt for breakfast. You could say I have 150 grams usually. On a day where I know I'm not going to snack and maybe my protein's going to be a bit lower because of that, I'd have 200 grams of yogurt, literally 50 extra grams of yogurt to go with my breakfast. And that will up my protein content by several grams. Or you could have your breakfast, whatever that may be, say it's got 20 grams of protein in, and then have a protein shake on the side. So that would be 40 grams of protein overall. Same goes for lunch if you've got like chicken and vegetables or whatever, chicken salad or chicken sandwich, I don't know. Say your chicken is your protein source and you would usually have like 150 grams of chicken. Have 200 or 250 grams of chicken that day. Protein is really, it's quite voluminous for the calories. So you can eat more protein and you're not massively pushing up your calories. Just to put it into a bit of like put it into some numbers for you, per gram of protein, you get 4 calories. And just to compare, per gram of fat, you get 9 calories. So you can see how fat and high fat foods are a lot more calorie dense than protein. So you can quite easily up your protein and not be massively increasing your calorie consumption. Also, when you're eating out, those meals, eating out at restaurants, like I said, which are treats, you will generally have a higher fat content in those meals. So what you could do is really limit your fat content the rest of the day on those days. I'm not promoting a low, sorry, my phone just fell over by my microphone. If you heard that big bang, not as nice in your ears, I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm not saying eat a really low fat diet because you need fat in your diet to, for healthy hormone function. It's really important for an overall healthy, balanced lifestyle. We still want to eat fat in our diet. So don't shy away from generally including fat in your meals. But on the days where you're eating out, you're probably going to eat a decent amount of fat in that meal out. So you could make sure that your breakfast and lunch are lower in fat and up the protein. So you've got really high protein meals on those days. The other thing I was going to say, however, is also don't sweat it too much. If the odd day you're not hitting your protein goal, as long as you are actively hitting a decent amount of protein the rest of the week, which I'm sure you are, especially if you're not eating out regularly, then in the grand scheme of things, that's going to be the main marker of progress. You do sometimes have to just step out and look at the bigger picture. And if you say, I've taken a step back and actually I've looked at the last week or 2 weeks or month even as a whole, and like 90% of the time I am hitting my protein goal, there's just the odd day where maybe I've eaten a meal out and I've used the make room method and I haven't hit as much protein, then it's really a drop in the ocean. It's kind of like with calories. If you were like if you're trying to be in a calorie deficit, but you're eating out 3 or 4 times a week, then you really have to manage your expectations of how much progress you're going to see. Same goes with your protein content. If you are trying to increase your protein, but actually you're only doing it 2-3 times a week, then you need to manage your expectations of how much of the benefit you're going to see from increased protein because you're not being consistent. So just make sure you look at the bigger picture and ask yourself, am I being consistent most of the time? Is it going to matter if one day this week I'm a little bit under my protein? Because in the grand scheme of things, it's not. And actually, I think sometimes we can put too much pressure on ourselves to be quote unquote perfect, when what actually makes the biggest difference is doing most of the things all of the time, then all of the things all of the time. Being perfect doesn't really exist. And actually, if you can focus on being consistent and then really not stress about these odd days where you don't hit your protein, you're more likely to do this whole process for longer, which means better results and more sustainable results. So keep that in mind as well. But hopefully that was helpful. So I say generally don't stress it, but maybe adding more protein to your breakfast and lunch could be a really good idea. And also just keeping an eye on fat in those meals because you're probably going to get a decent amount of fat in your meal out anyway. Okay, next question. We have spoken about this directly, but I also wanted to ask in here so you could hopefully speak about it, but more on the podcast. So yes, absolutely. I love that. So this client I have spoken to, this is exactly what she basically wrote in her workout, and I saw it and I thought I'm going to check in with her and make sure she's okay. So she said, I was catching up on the live workout on Sunday morning. So for anyone that doesn't work with me, that's the follow along workout that I currently run on Zoom with my online clients. I offer a Zoom workout where they can train with me once a week, and I record it, and anyone that can't come live can catch up in their own time. So she was catching up on the live workout on Sunday morning, and during the last set of dumbbell thrusters, my lower back twinged and then was so sore I struggled to carry on with the rest of the workout. I did what I could to finish the circuit with body weight only and different exercises, but didn't then do the final cardio circuit. It feels okay today, and I have managed to do a gentle workout, but it's a horrible feeling. So what can I do to hopefully stop this from happening again? And what should I do if this does happen again? Thank you. So yeah, just to give a little bit of extra context, when I checked in with this person yesterday, she did say her back was feeling much better. She was able to do some gentle exercise, and we talked about just, being sensible with weights, easing herself in, and maybe incorporating a little bit of extra mobility and stretching into her week. Now, when I touched base with her, I did ask, did your back feel tight before that workout? Do you feel like it was because of something you did in the workout technique-wise that maybe twinged your back? And she did reply and say she did feel quite tight going into that workout, because what happens quite often when we get injured or when we pick up a niggle is it's not necessarily one specific thing that has caused it. So I would say it'd be quite rare to injure yourself from doing one specific movement in the gym, unless something like you went over on your ankle and then you can really pinpoint the fact that actually you twisted your ankle doing a specific thing. When it comes to back pain, again, unless you're maybe lifting a really, really, really heavy deadlift, generally it's not going to be the movement that has caused the main issue. And in this case, and I know this person, she's been training with me for quite a while. I know she knows what she's doing in the gym. I'm so confident that her dumbbell thrusters, technique wise, would have been absolutely fine. And I wanted to reassure her of that, basically, because I know what it can be like confidence wise. It can really knock you when you think, oh, I was doing that movement and I hurt myself. You can then think, I don't want to do that movement again. Whereas actually it probably wasn't the dumbbell thruster. It was likely the fact that her back was feeling really tight that day, and then the intensity of the session just maybe felt that little bit too much for her back, and it just pushed her that bit over the edge, and her back was like, right, I need to stop. And that's where the pain comes in, because really pain is a signal of something's not right, I need to stop. And she did the exact right thing by stopping that movement, changing exercises, and also using lighter weights. And then the best thing that you can do when that happens is just to rest and give yourself a day or two to test the waters and see how it goes. Because generally, if it's just a small twinge and if it's just muscular, maybe you've strained a muscle, and obviously there are varying levels of how bad you can strain a muscle, but say it's just a gentle strain and you listen to your body as soon as it was painful, then hopefully it should get better on its own with rest. I mean, rest is really underrated sometimes for how beneficial it is for us. I think people sometimes think more is better, whereas actually listening to your body, rest and recovery is the most beneficial thing. So the fact that you tapered down your workout intensity and then rested was really, really good. And that's likely why you did feel better the next couple of days. If the pain is really bad and persists, that's when I'd say, right, after a few days, it's definitely worth going and visiting a health professional, a physio, an osteopath, to get them to give you some treatment and potentially a diagnosis. But whenever I've visited physios in the past, they've always said it's better to see how you are after a few days, to see if the pain does reduce on its own, because that can give them an indication then of what the issue is. But essentially, and so the first part of this question is about how do I avoid this happening again? If you're feeling tight, and I definitely go through this too, at the moment, my back is quite tight in the morning. So I know that I need to do a thorough warm up before my workouts, which I know you do in your workouts anyway. So you might be thinking, I am warming up, but it might be you need to spend a little bit more time on the warm ups and the movements that warm up your back. So that would be your hip thrusts, your posterior chain exercises, your hip hinges, getting some nice, decent low squats in there. So you really warm up your glutes, because that's always going to help our back. Making sure you rotate your shoulders, doing some scapular rotations, just really making sure you warm up that core area, because that's going to support your back as well. So you might just think to yourself, I need to make sure that my back is really nice and warm before I exercise. Also for me, I know that my back is stiffening up lately because I've really neglected my stretching and mobility. I actually have my own online yoga subscription that I follow, and I did put it on pause for a few months because I was really busy over Christmas. And when my back started hurting is when I was not doing any stretching or yoga. So I've restarted that. And actually my priority now is to do 2 of those classes per week, which actually I get a lot of the movements that I then share with my clients and put into my own mobility videos from my yoga class. So you guys do have access in the on-demand section to some mobility videos that I've done as follow along videos, they're like between 5 and 15 minutes long for the most part, of movements that I know really help me stay mobile, loosen up my muscles, help with tightness. So have a think about, are you doing any mobility and stretching? Because okay, we do a warm up before your strength session. And sometimes if we've got time, we'll do a stretch at the end of the live session, or I'll encourage you in your workouts to do a stretch at the end, but not always. It really has to be up to you to implement that into your week as well. I know this person does do Pilates, and I know Pilates has an element of like lots of body weight movements, and you are in a way stretching your body. But I would ask yourself, am I doing Pilates, which is a lot of like pulsing and isometric work, which means you're like tightening your muscles, or are you doing an element of stretching as well? So just ask yourself, am I doing enough stretching? Because I've definitely been neglecting that, and that's where my niggles have come from. So that would be another thing I'd say keep in mind. Also, for you guys that work with me online, I never want you to think that I won't check your technique. I am always here to check your technique as well. And what you can do when you are training, and I do this, I record myself, and when I'm working with a coach, I'll get them to check it. Or obviously I do know what I'm doing because I work as a coach as well and qualified personal trainer. I will record myself to check my own technique, especially if I haven't checked it for a while. I'll be like, right, am I squatting to depth? Is my form looking good? Am I deadlifting correctly? And it's amazing what you can see compared to what you can feel. So if you guys ever want feedback on your technique, then when you work out, just video yourself and try and video it from a point where I can really see, have a good view of like the movement that you want me to check. You can either upload it into your workout. So at the end of the workout, there should be like places for comments. I'm pretty sure you can upload a video there. And if you can, just pop it in there and I will pick it up, because I get notifications every time you guys do a workout. I don't always go and look at every single comment in there, but if there's anything that, catches my eye, I'll go and have a look, and a video would definitely catch my eye. So keep that in mind, that you can do that. Also, you could just DM me on Everfit. You can send me a video on there. You could also WhatsApp me. So if there are any movements that in particular you're like, oh, I really want to make sure my form is correct here, then do feel free to video and send it over. Obviously, I do upload as well in the app. Most of the demo videos are me coaching you. Not all of them, because I've still got some on my list to record, but any of the ones that aren't me, I have checked and made sure I'm happy with the technique. But just make sure that you are checking those videos, even if you've been doing this program for a little while or working with me for a little while, or you've had a coach prior to working with me and you know what you're doing. It's always worth going over the technique videos if you're not sure or just haven't watched them for a while, just to make sure that you are kind of positioning your body as I would recommend, that you're using breathing techniques that I would recommend to help with like core activation and stability. So it's good to keep those things in mind as well. But yeah, I would basically make sure you're warming up properly. Make sure you've got some mobility and stretching and recovery built into your week as well. Try not to think that more is better. Often less and resting and recovering properly is what's going to help us get better. And feel free to always get me to check techniques, especially for movements that you think, this is where I'm not feeling amazing when I'm doing it. But you did exactly the right thing by stopping that movement that hurt. Never push through pain. It's never worth it. Reducing the weights and using any of the alternative exercises that I gave. And also, you guys that have worked with me for a while, your repertoire, and this is what's so amazing about working with a coach. I was talking to this about with an in-person client yesterday. What is so good about working with a coach is that you are building your repertoire of exercises that you know and are familiar with and are confident with. So if there's ever a movement that I've given you in a class, because obviously I can't give 1,000 different variations, same in your workouts, I try and list different options, especially if I know the equipment might not be available to everyone. But I can't list like loads and loads. So just use your experience and your common sense if you ever need to swap an exercise. Even if I know that I'm coaching someone at the moment and she can't do lower body. So she's been swapping out her lower body exercises for upper body ones that she knows and which she knows aren't already in the workout. So always feel free to swap exercises to those that you already know. And again, the longer that you work with me and the longer that you work with a coach, you will build that repertoire of exercises. You will learn so many exercises to add to your list that is going to be so helpful long into the future. So yeah, keep that in mind as well. Okay, last question. And this is such a good one to finish on, and I think will help everybody. So this one says, do you have any advice on increasing willpower? I think I just have to do it and that there aren't really any shortcuts. Now, you are very true, and you have answered it yourself there in that you do quite often just have to do the thing. And this is why it's something that I always try and remind people of, including myself, because I'm human too, and I struggle with a lot of the same things, feelings, thought processes that you guys experience. you can't rely on willpower to do the stuff you want to do to get the results you want to get. You have to rely on doing it anyway. And we do it anyway because we build habits. My coaching and my ethos is very much about habit building. This is why I don't provide like intense 6-week plans where I get you to do loads of things in terms of food and exercise and maybe even self-care. That's just not realistic for you and your life. Because at the end of the day, that's not building a habit. That's focusing on a short 6-week thing that maybe you can do for 6 weeks because you feel super motivated and have got lots of willpower. But at the end of the day, it's not really building a habit. And don't get me wrong, maybe some people will build those habits in 6 weeks, but if it's not sustainable with your life, it's never going to be a habit. So this is why in Thrive, and when you work with me, we really focus on building you up in a sustainable way that fits in with your life. And what you have to remind yourself when willpower is low is that you have the habit now in your life of exercising however many times per week works for you. I know you do. I know this person 100% does. You have the habit, and I encourage everyone to do this, of going out for a walk every day. Everyone has different step count goals. And I know we've talked about before, like setting ourselves realistic goals, maybe improving on those goals where we can, not comparing to other people, but actually comparing to ourselves and where we're at and where we could do better at. And that's a habit that you've built. So I talked about this recently in some content where I said, like, going out for a walk every day, to me, I don't even have to think about it. I don't have to rely on willpower. There's no question as to whether I do it. I'll do it. I will do it because it's part of my life and it's a habit. So come rain or shine, I will get out for a walk. And I said this in the video that I recorded as well. Like, I do have a dog and that does help. But even if I didn't have a dog, and long before I had a dog, I still went for a walk every single day. And that's because it's a habit-based thing. So you need to build things into your life which you can be consistent with even when there's no willpower there. And there will be times, I want to reassure you, there will be times where motivation is high and you do feel like you've got lots of willpower. And I really encourage you to ride that wave and push yourself on those weeks to do, maybe even do that a little bit more. So if you're feeling great one week, get in some extra steps. If you're feeling really good in your workouts, lift heavier, get some extra reps in. Because there will ultimately be weeks where willpower is low and motivation is low. And right now, as I record this, it is the 27th of January. It has been a dull and dark and mostly bleak few weeks here in the UK. The weather is rubbish. It's very dark all the time. That really doesn't help anyone's willpower. But I know that you guys, the women that I've been working with, you are still getting your workouts each week. No one has blamed the weather for not getting their steps in. Okay, maybe if the weather's been awful, lots of us have had lower step counts than usual, but we've still got some steps in every day. All of us are still making an effort to eat protein with every meal. Like, you guys aren't relying on willpower to do those things because they are habits. And I think it's just a good realization to know and to remember that, like, I, as a personal trainer who works in this industry and has chosen to work in this industry because I love strength training and the benefits it brings to our lives, and I want to help people implement that as well, as alongside all these kind of healthy habits related to food, exercise, etc. I still don't want to work out quite often, like, life is busy, it's tiring, I've got a lot on my plate. I don't always want to get up and go in that gym, but I never regret going in. I really feel the benefit. It benefits my everyday life so, so much that to me, it is worth pushing through that slight bit of pain I get when I wake up at 5:30 in the morning and have to get dressed and go out into the dark and get to the gym. That overrides that feeling of lack of willpower for me. I try and think about future me, and I know it sounds cheesy, but it is true. It really does help. If you can think about what future you will thank you for, it can really help you push through that willpower. So just remember, we don't rely on willpower. It's great when it's there. We will use it to our advantage. We will do a little bit more on those weeks. But when it's not there, we're not going to stop doing things because this is part of our life. We've built habits. And I think it's good to remember that you can't do all of the things all of the time. And similarly, you can't push forward the hardest possible all of the time either. So I think also accepting that there'll be some weeks of the month, especially as women going through menstrual cycles, or if you're going through perimenopause or postmenopause. Essentially, hormones affect women so much more than they do men. And even men will have times of the month where they feel more motivated than others. But for women, it really is highlighted so much. So I think sometimes leaning into how you're feeling that week and managing your expectations for yourself that week, not giving up totally, but maybe scaling things down in terms of workout intensity or frequency, or maybe just being kind to yourself or factoring a little bit of self-care on those weeks that you will struggle. And then on the weeks where you're feeling really good, when you're in a phase of your cycle where you're like, my energy is high, I feel really positive, do more on those weeks. Then overall as the month, it will balance out and you'll still be you'll still be consistent over time. So I hope that was helpful. I feel like I could ramble on about this topic loads. So if you want me to do any specific content or record a specific episode about this, then let me know. Maybe like talking about willpower versus habits, and maybe even training around our cycle. I've done a couple of episodes on that before, so you could always go and check out those. Training around your period, also eating around your period and how that changes. But yeah, I think it's just good as women to be kind to ourselves, because there will be parts of the month, every month, where we really don't feel as motivated as others. And that's normal, and it's okay to lean into that. But the point is, you never stop, because you're not waiting for willpower to hit for you to continue doing the things, if that makes sense. Right, I will round up here because I feel like those were some really good chunky questions, and I've discussed quite a lot. And we're around 36 minutes as I'm rounding up now, and I think that is a nice time for the podcast. Obviously, some weeks have been longer when I've got loads of questions, but I think when I have a really good few chunky questions, this is a nice amount of time. So I obviously could always talk about loads more topics. If there's anything that has come to your mind, or maybe you forgot to ask this week, feel free to ask me before next check-in. I'll add it to my list for the next podcast, and I'll always get back to you in the meantime with like some direct answers for you, so you don't have to wait until next week as well. So yeah, do reach out if you need anything. Like I said at the beginning, spaces to thrive and to work with me online are now open. I will leave the details in the show notes. And again, please do share with anyone you know who you think might be a good fit for Thrive, who you think Thrive is a good fit for them. You can send them in the direction of the podcast episode prior to this one, where I go over all the details about what's included and how it works and what I help you with. And obviously, I'm always here to chat through details and send you the info. There's never any pressure to go forward if you inquire for details, by the way. I always want to make that clear. It's just for you to figure out whether this is the right thing for you. And if it is, I would absolutely love to help you so much. So thank you for listening. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.